Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. This is the Sinclair Range Week in Review, September 19, 2025. This is normally the part on the live stream where we are waiting for people to join, and I speak about some sort of things that are just wasting time really while we wait for people. But at this particular episode, we are pre-recorded. So we could just jump into it right now. Why are we pre-recorded, you might ask? Well, tomorrow is Friday. I'm shooting this on Thursday late evening, and tomorrow I'm off to a funeral. I'm driving 4 hours one way, I don't know, a couple hours at a memorial service, I don't know, 4 hours back. So that'll be my day tomorrow, and I can't do my regular live stream with you. I'm going to keep the details of this memorial service private. It's a fellow that I met maybe 6 months ago, a very successful business person, really, really good guy. I'm not claiming I knew him well. I met him, I don't know, 4 or 5 times. I like him a lot. I like the family a lot. And, you know, he was terminally ill when I met him. And he wasn't mobile. He was in a chair. He was in a lot of pain. But still, I met him in bars with groups of people, and he was engaged. And he and I had a couple of private, interesting business talks. I liked him a lot. And mostly, I respect his fortitude. He was getting out there. He was doing things, and good on him. And so that's what I'm doing tomorrow, and that's why we are pre-recorded today. So let's get on with it. Welcome. This is the Week in Review at Sinclair Range. My name is Scott Sinclair. I'm the owner, founder, president of Sinclair Range, and this is a podcast that gives you insight into the inner workings of SRI, your window into the world of deals, decisions, day-to-day business adventures. And we have our usual segments. Lessons learned of the week, interesting file or deal of the week, struggles of the week, Scott's observations of the week. Let's get into it. Let me ask you a question. By the way, cheers, I'm having a scotch. I know this is like a midday thing for you when this is released, and I shouldn't be drinking, but it's been that kind of day. It's been that kind of week. That's a Lagavulin from my father's collection, who passed a year ago this coming Monday. And thought I would open that up in honor of him. How much work do you do marketing and branding your business? I've always loved, do you listen to Gary Vaynerchuk? He was one of kind of my early podcast people that I would listen to, probably the same for everybody in business. But Gary V has a saying, I don't remember it exactly, but it's something like sales and marketing is what you do if you don't know how to brand. And that always made me laugh. And it's very, very true. And to me, everybody has a different understanding, a different definition of what branding really means for your business, for my business, whatever. I think it changes across businesses, and certainly from executive to executive, a different thing. It's a different thing. I've always thought about it as the strategic positioning of your product or service, your business, within the 4 P's of marketing, being price, place, promotion, product. Okay, and that's those are in marketing strategy. Product, price, place, promotion is how you position yourself. And for example, a iPhone, if you think about those metrics on price, well, it's a very expensive product, and that's what you expect across the board. Every time you deal with Apple, you know it's going to be pricey. But on the product side, you know that it's going to be slick and cool, and it's going to really integrate well with all your other Apple products and services. You know that the place, which is really a P word for distribution, will be at the Apple Store, and you understand how that works. That's part of the brand definition. And you know their promotion and the ads that they used to run, the way that they promote now currently, which is not very much because the brand is so strong, they don't really need to do that. And so those are the 4 P's. If you can think about that for any brand and start to put that together, and you can do it for your own business. And to me, branding is defining that so you understand it, and then being consistent with that positioning in everything you do, right from your messaging to your execution, every touch that you have with your customer base or with employees or stakeholders, the external world, every touch should reinforce that positioning the way I've just defined it. That's the way I think about it. You may have a different way, and I do understand that. And so you need to be consistent, and you need to get attention. right? You need to repeat that message. The most important thing after you have attention in persuasion and building brand. And let's make no mistake about this. Let's not have an illusion. When you are building a brand, what you are doing is persuading. That's what you're doing. And one of the most important things you need to do is repeat the message over and over and over again. That is the heart of persuasion. In the 1990s, I founded Merchant Capital Group in Ottawa in 1994. And at the time in Ottawa, they called it Silicon Valley North. There was all sorts of tech deals. And there was a newspaper. This was before the internet. There was a newspaper called the Ottawa Business Journal. And the Ottawa Business Journal was published once a month. So you had 12 issues a year. And as a young entrepreneur, I learned the magic of committing to large media buys over time. And that is just how dramatically it would reduce the price per issue or per ad. And so what I would do is commit to put an ad in every issue of the Ottawa Business Journal for a year. So 12 ads, 12 issues. And that brought the price down to a pretty reasonable level, even for a broke guy like me. And I would put in a financial tombstone. Now, if you don't know what a financial tombstone is, just picture a large rectangular placed. If you're on the audio podcast, you're not seeing my fingers go here, but you think of a rectangular shaped ad in a newspaper or journal or a magazine or whatever, and it's announcing a transaction. ABC bought XYZ company. The deal was initiated and arranged by Merchant Capital Group. That would be a typical type of financial tombstone. And what I did back then is I always thought, they showed credibility, they showed action, they showed we were doing things, but I was also thought it kind of got lost in a newspaper. So I put a big bold heading on top that said results, not promises. Results, not promises. And then that would be a tombstone coming underneath. And I'm not aware of anybody who has ever put a header on a tombstone before that. But that's what we did, and it really got attention. And I ran that every single every single issue of the Ottawa Business Journal for a couple of years. And I thought it really spoke to our brand. It was action-oriented. We get results. We don't make faux promises and just talk a lot of BS. We get things done. We're in the deal business. And it defined and added to our brand and our positioning. So the whole city would be excited about the Ottawa Business Journal. Like it was a free journal, and it would go to these mailboxes, and we would just go stand there on the day that they were supposed to be released and open up the mailbox and hope that it was in there and wait for the delivery guy. Lots of people would do that. It was kind of funny to think about it now. And so we would get these and everybody would see it. And other cities, even Toronto, who was interested in the tech scene, would be looking at this as well. And so we got a lot of exposure at Merchant Capital Group for that. And people would come to me, the point of the story is people would come to me all the time and they would say, hey, you're spending all these money on ads and you're doing all this stuff. Do you ever get a phone call? Does it work? Do you ever get anybody call you and say, hey, I wanted to do business with you because of these ads? And I would tell them the absolute truth. No, never, not once have I ever had a phone call from that ad. And I do not expect to get a phone call from that ad. What do you mean, Scott? It is not the nature of my industry and my business where someone's flipping through a business newspaper and sees an ad for a deal to M&A, to sell their business, to raise some money, and says to themselves, oh yeah, I actually need some money. I should go raise some money. I'm going to call these guys and see what can be done. It doesn't work that way. But what it does do is I can't tell you how many times I was, through other business development work, introduced to a CEO founder of a tech business back then, and I would go to their office in Canada or wherever it was, and I would go in and I would meet this person for the first time. They would open their desk drawer and they would pull out every one of these ads cut out of the newspaper. This CEO founder had been cutting them out for a year, 6 months, whatever length of time, stacking them up in his drawer, and when he meets me, he goes, hey, you're this guy. And what it does is it cuts the sales cycle, which could have been 6 or 9 months. It cuts it to zero, absolute zero. I don't have to explain who I am. I don't have to explain why I'm here. I don't have to explain why you should hire me versus the other business company competitor over there. That's all done. It's already over. That's the power of the brand. And that's what we got from those ads. And then later when the internet was invented, I know that's an old statement, but in the 2000s, I switched into blogging. And it was sort of the same thing. It was just an evolution of the same strategy with a different technology on the blogging. So we turned our website, I think it was Range Corporate Advisors by this point, and we turned it into, I turned it into a blog format website, which if you look at the Sinclair Range website right now is the exact same format. It's dynamic. So the whole thing is just a big blog. That's what it is. And we can post things and news releases. But back then I religiously did 3 posts a week. One of them I would write myself, which would take me like 15, 20 minutes. It was no big deal. Just get up, grab my coffee one morning and write that. And then I'd be reading newspapers or whatever, and I'd see 2 other articles that I could find links to, or a lawyer published something relevant, and I would repost it. So that was my 3 posts for the week. And I did that religiously, and we were crushing it in the early to mid 2000s. We were getting a small little corporate finance house in Toronto at that point. We were getting 6,000 views, unique views a month on our website. Nobody was getting that. Nobody. There was one time when I reposted something from PNC Bank, which was one of the largest sort of mid-market banks in the U.S., regional banks at the time. And their Toronto representative got a call, and they said, "Hey, who is this Sinclair guy?" And the guy who got the call that worked for PNC knew me. And he said, "Oh yeah." He said, "Buddy, why is that?" And he says, "He's the single largest user of the PNC website in the world." And what was happening is I had reposted something, and then people were going to my site, they were reading it, and then clicking through on the link to PNC. So it looked like it was just me. I had looked at their stuff 6,000 times. But anyways, it was the same thing. No one ever called from the website, but every time I met somebody new, we had created the brand. I'd meet somebody new and they would quote to me, literally quote to me from something that I had written. That was the power of the blog and of the brand, and it shortened the sales cycle to 0. Well, the podcasts and the live stream were the next derivation of that. It started with Martinis with Scott. Whenever we started doing those live, and me drinking too many martinis, live streaming on air with guests. And that changed into the Witty Momentum podcast. And now you're seeing the Week in Review at Sinclair Range right now, which is just a continuation of this whole thing. And the power is still there. I remember about a year ago, I was having a customer call, a customer call in the automotive industry. We were making parts for a very large automotive company in the US. I was having a meeting with a buyer. I'd never met him before. He's younger than me, obviously, on the other side of the continent and from a different world and industry. And we're on screen, a couple of different people, but we're on screen and we're talking, and the guy's looking at me through the Zoom. He goes, "Wait a minute, I listen to your podcast. I watch you on YouTube." Needless to say, that call went way better than it could have gone because we'd already communicated the brand. I'd already built the bridge of competence through those content efforts. I had a call this week. This is why I was reminded of this lesson of the week. I had a call this week on an M&A deal where we are running a CISP program to sell a business, and one of the buyers is a listener to this very podcast. I don't know if the deal is a good fit for him, but I think it could be. I think it's a great deal, and I think this might be a good person to take that over. But what I do know is that we already have a connection. We've already built credibility between us because of this content, because of the podcast I'm doing right now, and because of the branding efforts that I've been putting in. If you work on your brand and protect it, you don't need to work so hard on sales. Gary Vee tells us marketing and sales are for people that don't have the brand. If you ever listen to Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street's content and his sales book, which I think is terrific, Straight Line Sales, I think it's called, he tells you that immediately what you're trying to do on a scale of 1 to 10 is create a very high rating, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, on 6 different metrics. And it all boils down to how you score on these 6 different metrics. And the 6 different metrics are, and I'm going to tell you this without having looked it up, so I hope I don't mess this up, but the awesomeness of your product on both a logical level, that's the numbers and the features and this and that, and the emotional level. So how awesome your product is, number 1, logically, number 2, emotionally, how much they trust you personally, logically and emotionally, 1, 2, 3, 4, and how much they trust the organization that you represent as a salesperson, logically and emotionally. I hope I got that right, Jordan. But those are your 6 metrics. Branding, as I've described it to you, the work that I've done in the past, in particular personal branding, really addresses 4 out of those, and good corporate branding addresses the other one. Okay, the awesomeness of the product. So you should be doing work, is the point, on your branding. You should be putting out content if that's how you want to go about it. But there's a million ways to go about it. Think of it the way that I've just described it, and I'm telling you, you can create a brand and your sales will go through the roof. That's the bottom line. And by the way, if you want to learn more about branding, let me ask you a question. Have you joined the Inner Circle? The Inner Circle Deals in Capital. What is that, you ask? What is that, Scott? The Inner Circle is a free, private, live community where founders, executives, advisors, investment bankers, all sorts of people join every 2 weeks on Zoom. It's hosted, it's organized by me, and we pitch deals, and we share challenges, and we get feedback to sharpen our strategies. And if you're raising capital, if you're structuring deals, if you're navigating tough business challenges, this is the place for you. What are the goals of the Inner Circle? Community, education, deal review, planning, pitching, practice, and pitching for real. We're getting great feedback on this, and you should come join us. You should come join us. And the relevance to the brand, by the way, when you come join us, you bring your deals, you bring your questions, engage, connect, reach out in the notes if you want to join this. Wherever you're listening to this, we follow comments, so just reach out, or you can go to sinclairrange.com and reach out on the contact form, and we'll get you registered. And so, and the next meeting is next Tuesday, by the way, and then we go every other Tuesday from there. The point of all this, as it leads to branding, is we have one of the world's best personal branding experts out of the U.S. joining the Inner Circle. And he will be giving a 15-minute little coaching session for us and for us leaders on how to personal brand. Next week, next Tuesday. That is the value of the Inner Circle coming to you for free. All you have to do is get off your butt, register, and engage. So it's been a great deal of the week at Sinclair Range. By the way, I didn't time when we started this, so I have no idea how long this is going to go. I'm going to try and keep it short, though. It's late at night, and I got other things to do. We spent a great deal of time this week preparing for a receivership motion that a client has scheduled for next week. It's a do-or-die situation. It always is when you're going to court. And it's an interesting, we have a difficult and interesting hostile counterparty on this. Hostile being the bank, but it's not really the bank. It's the professionals, the advisors to the bank that are taking this way too far. I'm going to maintain confidentialities at this stage. I don't think it's appropriate for me to be giving too many details, but we end up in court. That's a public record, and so it's all going to be clear there and out in the open then, and it should be clear for me to share some of this information for you on future episodes if I think is going to be interesting. But one thing that occurred to me yesterday is that the real danger in this stuff, we were going through because we have to file an affidavit, we being my client. And of course, we're helping drafting, we're putting the numbers together, we're getting the narrative, we're making sure what the lawyers in writing is communicating well and hitting all the points that we want to hit. And it's a large document, right? It goes on for 9 or 10 pages. of actual writing, then a bunch of attachments that go on that. So it's a lot. And I'm reading it, and I'm thinking to myself last night, I love this document. Like, how could we ever lose? This thing is fantastic. And then I said to the lawyer this morning, I said, I'm like the most susceptible person to reading my own press. Like, it's a real danger. Don't read your own press. You need to stay humble and continue with the work ethic on this stuff. And when you end up in court, you never know what's going to happen. I don't care. Any good lawyer will tell you that. I don't care how good your case is. You just never know. You just never know. Things happen, and it could go good when you don't deserve it, and it could go bad when you don't deserve that either. It's a roll of the dice, and you need to weigh that against options that you may have, like a settlement. In this particular case, we've been given really a terrible option, a super aggressive, kill the company type option from the lender's advisors. And just as I went to air right now recording this, but I don't have time to stop recording and deal with this issue, I've learned that the institution is futzing around and holding back payroll that should be released tomorrow. So maybe I should have put this on Struggles of the Week, but I'll need to deal with this after I hang up here on this video and finish my scotch and go back to work on that particular issue. Speaking of Struggles of the Week and hostile counterparties, I do have an incompetent counterparty in this is in one of our office locations in Toronto specifically. So have you ever used a business center? Do you know how that works? So instead of having your own office space, you've got this sort of fractional virtual, you can use it every now and then, you can keep the office all the time, there's shared reception, they make the coffee, all that sort of stuff. And the math on these things was always, back in the day, if you had 5 employees or less, you were better off being in a business center than having your own lease and putting in the furniture and the phone system and the photocopier. It was always the phone system that kills you. The phone systems used to be outrageously expensive and difficult to maintain. And so you always wanted to be in a business center. I don't know what the math is these days, but post-COVID, Sinclair Range has ended up with business centers everywhere. And we were in a business center at Merchant Capital back in 1994 when I started. We were specifically at HQ, whatever they were called. It was called HQ. They ended up going bankrupt. We were in the middle of, I think, our very first private placement securities deal by offering memorandum. And we were the night before closing, and we're on the phone and we're working and everything. And everybody got locked out of HQ. All these businesses got tossed out and the phones were cut off. And it turns out we were all paying HQ, but HQ wasn't paying its rent. And I learned about the magic of a DID line, is what they call these telephone lines. It turns out we were paying our telephone bill, but we didn't have a telephone line. We had what's called a DID, which is effectively an extension of HQ's telephone line. They get a gazillion extensions, and they weren't paying their telephone bill. And so the phones got cut off. I remember in a prolonged negotiation with Bell Canada, they wanted $3,000 for me to buy my number because it wasn't my number, as it turned out, even though I thought it was my number. So I had all these hard lessons back there in the mid-90s, whenever that was. By the way, that deal fell apart, as you might imagine. Well, we grew and grew, ended up with a bunch of office space. At one point I had, I think, 25,000 square feet. I forget the right number, but somewhere in that range. Maybe it was a tad smaller, right on Bay Street in Toronto at Bay and Wellington on the corner. And it was just such an amazing ego play, but absolutely not necessary. And now that I'm older and wiser and I'm phobic about occupancy costs, we've gone back to virtual offices, which has its downsides, but on balance works really well for Sinclair Range. One of those virtual offices is the Toronto location, which is Regis. And by the way, we've had many Regis's contracts throughout the world in the past, including our Calgary office is a Regis solution right now. I don't think our New York is. I think that's somebody else. And they just bill your credit card and they pay in advance, and it's just, you don't even really think about it. It's never an issue, except for the Toronto people. The Toronto people can't seem to figure out how to invoice, how to bill, how to not create frauds on your credit card. how to answer you if you have questions. And then what they do is they restrict services like you don't get your voicemails or you don't get any mail for 2 weeks, and they don't tell you. And then you got to figure out, somebody in my office will come to me and say, why haven't we had any mail in 2 weeks? That doesn't make any sense. And then you, I don't know, go ask the people. It's, oh, yeah, well, your services are restricted. I'm like, what are you talking about? And so we have a contract. They they charge my credit card for everything, and it's paid in advance. So there's, unless my credit card bounces, which it doesn't, there's no chance that they could not be paid. So it's never an issue. Their complaint right now is that we used to have a full-time office there, and they say they never collected their last month's rent, which is true. It's true because they have a deposit for last month's rent that in fact exceeds what they think they're owed. So in fact, they owe us money, and they're not, and they acknowledge that in writing. Yeah, it's true. We owe you money. Maybe you should just pay us and then we'll pay you back. I said, just offset it. Send us the balance. And so what did they do? They restricted, we learned this week, they restricted services on the new contract that's already paid in full. They restricted services on this, and I'm just sending them nasty notes. They're saying, what are you doing? You owe us money from the old contract. You're not dealing with that. You've been paid for this new contract. You just put it on my credit card. That's all fine. And you're not delivering services on this new contract. And also you just randomly put other shit through my credit card all the time. And I don't want to report it fraud because that seems ridiculous for a company of your size and credibility. But what else am I supposed to do? And as I was setting up the camera here to talk to you, they put 2 more just made up charges through my credit card right now, which I'm going to have to protest. Anyways, it's not really a struggle. It's just been a pain in the ass this week. And I guess we'll be moving. You'll see that on the website shortly. I don't know what the solution is though. It's out of control. I don't know how long we've been. I didn't set up a clock in front of me. I did not have any musings this week, any Scott's thoughts, because I've been too damn busy. And I need to go deal with this payroll crisis for the client right now. It just blows me away. Hey, thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening. Thank you for all the kind words to people that reach out to me and ask me questions and thank me for doing this show. And if you want some help, if you're running a business and you're in transition, it could be high growth, could be financial distress. If you're doing deals, that's what Sinclair Range is for. Give us a call. Reach out, give us a call. We will talk to you next week. And hey, come join the Inner Circle. It's a great place to be. It's really been a fantastic exercise. Talk to you next week.